The Federal and Francis Xavier Engineering College jointly present the Nellai Marathon 2024. This event is powered by Little Flower Public School and NIMS Hospital, Tirunelveli. Run for Health on Sunday, December 29. Entry is free and all are welcome.
Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. 75 years of the adoption of the Indian Constitution. That's the debate which has begun today in Lok Sabha, and the next week there'll be 2 days which are dedicated to this discussion in Rajya Sabha. Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, Union defense minister, started the discussion, and the major pointers, what he said was that Supreme Court is the custodian, is the ultimate custodian of the Constitution, and Constitution is not the gift to the nation by one party. This is what he said. Then he has said that there have been attempts to black out the role of some people who upheld the Constitution, who contributed to the Constitution, and various names like Veer Savarkar, Madan Mohan Malvi, Lala Rajpat Rai. So all these names he listed out. Then basically he said was that there are fake narratives being spread about the Indian Constitution as well. This is in a crux what Rajnath Singh said. Then immediately after Rajnath Singh, Priyanka Gandhi's maiden speech, which everybody was looking forward to, and it was a frontal attack on the Modi government, whether it was Sambal, whether it was Manipur. She referred to all the points which needed answers from the Modi government. In fact, many people said that it was a dignified speech, and to which Modi did not have answers. People on the social media have already started writing about that. But even Akhilesh Yadav spoke after Priyanka Gandhi's speech was over. I'm not getting into the details of who all spoke what. But the biggest question is that what are we going to achieve in these 4 days with this discussion on the Constitution, on the 75 years of the Indian Constitution, and how meaningful will this discussion be? I'm joined by the renowned historian Mridula Mukherjee today. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. We have T.K. Rajlakshmi, Senior Deputy Editor of The Frontline. Thanks, Rajlakshmi, for joining. And we have Pushparaj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra and also works closely with the India Alliance. Thank you so much, Pushparaj, for joining. And I'll begin with Mridula Mukherjee. Ma'am, how meaningful, according to you, is this discussion, this 4 days, 2 days in Lok Sabha and 2 days in Rajya Sabha? This discussion is going to take place in both houses of parliament. But any meaning, any special significance you want to attach, because it's happening in the 75th year of the Indian Constitution?
Well, ideally it could have been a very meaningful discussion. Certainly, 75 years later is a very good time to sit back and look objectively at how the Constitution has stood by us, how well it served the interests of the Indian people, how much have we been able to actually utilize what is there in the Constitution. You see, Constitution is not just a dead document, a book printed and kept, to the side. It's actually a question of how much we as a people can use it for our interests. There's so much there. Like, for example, the issue of fundamental rights. We know that in the last few years, this is an area which has been one of great contention. We know that the present regime has been less than, honorable in respecting fundamental rights, especially right to freedom of speech, freedom of association. We know so many activists and students, our own students, put in jail and rotting there for years, So there are so many issues. There could have been, there should have been, I hope there still is, a genuine attempt to look at how some of the very important features of the Indian Constitution, have played themselves out, how much we have tried to preserve. See, it's I would say it's a gem that was given to us, through the efforts of hundreds and thousands of our people, including our freedom fighters. So to say somebody was ignored, this and that, and this is all nonsense. And in any case, if you take names of people who really had nothing to do with constitution making in India, Lala Lajpat Rai, I don't know how he becomes an ancestor or someone they have to defend, you know. Lala Lajpat Rai, from the beginning to the end, I mean, you know, he was a congressman, and there is no way that he died for the nation. He was beaten, and that's how by the lathis of the British police when he was agitating against the Simon Commission coming to India, an all-white commission, and that's how he died. And Bhagat Singh actually also died because he decided to take revenge for Lala Lajpat Rai's murder, you know, and shoot that policeman. So, I mean, these kind of thing, you know, that we've ignored Savarkar. Savarkar had nothing ever to do with his ideas on what should be the future of India after independence were very different from what is there in the constitution. He did not believe in the values of the constitution, whereas Lajpat Rai is very different. Okay, Lajpat Rai was a major, major fighter for Indian independence, you know.
In fact, Veer Savarkar was also one of the contributors, according to Rajnath Singh. He named him as well.
Veer Savarkar was, in quotes, a revolutionary. That is, you know, that we belong to the group that we call the revolutionaries early on, and he was indeed he was sent to the Andamans. But the trouble is that from the moment he got there, within 6 months, he started apologizing for what he had done. And this is something that goes completely against the tradition of our revolutionaries. There is not a single other example in the history of the revolutionary movement of somebody actually apologizing. People suffered for years. People suffered. He was released after 10 years. He was brought back to India, and then he was put under not house arrest, but it was confined to Ratnagiri. He could freely move around Ratnagiri, but he couldn't participate in politics for another 15 years or so, 10 or 15 years. But there's so many people who sacrificed. They were in Andamans the whole of their lives, virtually, you know, 30 years. But nobody ever apologized and cringed. And then after that, it was also the kind of politics he followed after being released. He never, never, never espoused the nationalist cause after being released. He became a Hindutvavadi. He's the father of the term and the concept of Hindutva. And then his whole politics was that of communalism and then of cooperating with the British during the Second World War. So how do we make somebody like that of, you know, a great contributor to our constitution? I don't know. But you know what I mean is that this is so unnecessary. This attempt to just use this debate to again put in your favorite stories about Savarkar and this and that and the other to do nitpicking, whereas the attempt should be to have a serious discussion. I do not care that the BJP has a different take on the constitution. Let them come out with a serious critique. Let it be debated openly. What is their critique of the Constitution? They have had a different perspective, but now it's all about I'm the greatest protector of the Constitution. Whereas in practice, what are you doing? You've got your representatives, BJP people only, to go and file petitions on the Places of Worship Act. Which what is that? That goes completely against the secular nature of the Constitution. You are asking for the constitution to be changed. You are asking for some essential principles in that constitution to be given up, where you're saying the Places of Worship Act is something that should not be implemented. And in every town and mohalla and gully, we should be looking for temples under mosques and dargahs. You know, that's what we should be doing with ourselves. So I think it is sad. The way I look upon it as a historian, it is sad that, and we've had a great history in our parliament. You look at the debates during the period of Nehru, you know, genuine debates used to be there. With critiques, the socialists, for example, were vituperative against Nehru. It was not that they didn't use very foul language, they often did, and Nehru ticked them off from that also. But that was not the point. They had genuine critiques of the policies, you know. They could hold the government to task. Here you are not doing that. You are not coming up with a genuine critique of what has been the failures or the weaknesses in the constitution from your perspective. So this is what I, it's such a wasted opportunity,
Okay.
and naturally, what you expect that the opposition is, also not going to take the opportunity to hit back at you when every day you are in fact weakening the constitution.
Okay, so I'll come to Rajlakshmi now. Mridula ma'am has explained that how it looks like a wasted opportunity. It could have been used for
Yeah.
some meaningful purpose. But coming to the politics of it, we are seeing an all-out verbal war in Lok Sabha. I mean, Priyanka Gandhi has also criticized. Akhilesh Yadav also pointed out a lot of things. But the manner in which Lalan Singh and everyone, started talking about emergency, how a dictatorial prime minister like Indira Gandhi, she started off. Rajnath also made a mention of Justice H.R. Khanna. Now, how do you see this entire discussion being unfolding in Lok Sabha on the first day? How would you really read it politically, as far as the political battle inside the house is concerned? Yes.
Yeah. See, Nilu, I did not expect, anything different to happen. And in fact, what happened, in the Rajya Sabha was also, inevitable, and it's been adjourned because I think the discussion could not even take. I mean, it's supposed to take off in the next 2 days, but I think given the trajectory of all the things that have happened in the last 1 week, where the where this where the government, where the benches have been extremely reluctant, as we were discussing yesterday also, to have a discussion on the Adani indictment, and as in fact counter post, George Soros, etc., to attack the opposition. So this entire week we have seen that happen. So I did not expect that the government would do anything serious, but then of course, one can still hope, as Professor Mukherjee also said, that there should have been a serious debate, as well as a serious critique, even from the point of view of the BJP. I mean, if they felt that there was something sort of inadequate um, about constitutional goals, constitutional objectives, they could have placed their own critique, and they could have also attacked the opposition, based on their failure to implement the covenant that is a constitution, right? Because parties in the opposition have also ruled this country. So I think it could have been, a serious, as well as, a direction filled discussion,
Right.
rather than just a direction less presentation on part of the ruling party, at least because they started the discussion, and they started the discussion with, attacking the opposition. And when you attack the opposition, you are essentially cornering the Congress. You're cornering Jawaharlal Nehru. You're again all those the same trope, of dynastic politics, about the Congress has the constitution in its pockets. Well, we hold the constitution to our heads. Well, everybody knows, which is a political dispensation which has really played havoc with the constitution, at least in the last 1 decade or so, and which has subverted almost all constitutional institutions, whether it's the Election Commission of India, whether it's sections of the judiciary, whether it's the armed forces. There are, I mean, I think the list is, endless. Educational institutions, and again, this could have been a serious opportunity also for the ruling party to say, where have all our goals, to that of removing, inequality, to that of establishing, a secular socialist India, to that of, removing, inequalities, to ensuring, health for all, to ensuring education for all, even, directive principles of state policy. I mean, anything could have been discussed. There's so much to discuss. Where do we stand, where affirmative action is concerned?
Yeah.
To what extent have we implemented preservations, right? So the opportunities were endless. But then I think the entire framework of the discussion was to essentially corner the opposition into sort of saying and also believing that you have not done anything, and we are the ones, okay, who are upholding the constitution in their own definition of what they believe that they are that they believe the constitution to be, which is, I think, entirely different from what their idea of the constitution is, and constitutional goals are. In fact, if you look at what has happened over the last 10 years, or in fact more particularly in the last few months, I mean, the way they have been sort of digging around, and subverting the Places of Worship Act itself, as in fact Professor Mukherjee also mentioned. I mean, and in fact, encouraging their foot soldiers to go completely berserk. Again, the issue of tolerance. Tolerance is a big thing. Scientific temperament. All these issues need to be talked about. I hope, I mean, somebody does in the next few days, and though, of course, I don't expect the ruling party to do it definitely. So it has been really, narrowed down to just scoring, brownie points, to a very, very n- narrow framework, of what the constitution is all about, what constitutional goals were all about, what did the framers of the constitution envisage this country to be, right? They have, because the fact is there are some stated goals, and if those goals have been achieved or not, what have been achievables. I mean, there is so much that can be spoken, and done. I mean, any government, any, I think, responsible government would have placed let's say, kind of a dossier, okay, for debate. But the intention itself has not been to debate. The intention is not to debate the constitution. The intention is essentially to run down all previous governments that have been at the center, to show how inefficient you've been, and how efficient we are. Again, this whole scoring system, this one-upmanship that is happening. I mean, it actually, I don't think it behoves, to treat the constitution like this. I think the framers of a constitution would be rolling in their graves, frankly, if they were around or alive. I mean,
Right. All right. So I'll come to Pushparaj now. That Pushparaj, what do you think is going to be the goal end of these 4 days of discussion, which has just begun, and the manner in which it has begun? It's almost like a political fistcuff, which we are seeing inside Parliament between the ruling party and the opposition. And given the kind of atmospherics, in the backdrop, what has started, what do you think is going to be? And do you find this discussion of any significance?
Iluji, a very good evening to you, my fellow panelists, and our audience. Firstly, I want to begin by asserting, like our two panelists have said, that the values and substance of our constitutions are meant to be protected and safeguarded. This includes liberty, equality, fraternity, equity, and justice. Now, paying lip service to these values at a symbolic special sitting may help the BJP blunt the pervasive impression that it wants to amend the constitution, but it is puerile grandstanding and hypocrisy. It's like those tweets that Pradhan Mantri Modi is forced to make on former PM's Jayantis, their birth and death anniversary. He doesn't want to do it, but he has to do it. Today's debate and tomorrow's debate is going to be just like that. We all know that it was neither heartfelt or sincere from the BJP. It was rank hypocrisy for the BJP to do this for various reasons. Firstly, I mean, Prime Minister Modi himself takes the Constitution Day debate so seriously that he wasn't even present in Parliament. Forget about Parliament. He wasn't even in Delhi. He was on a joyride on a boat while the Parliament was going on the discussion was going on in Parliament. It's also hypocrisy because the BJP was denigrating whatever the India Party MPs were saying in Lok Sabha and disrupting the proceedings at the same time in Rajya Sabha. It's also hypocrisy because the speaker, he was as mute as a chiseled stone Buddha when opposition MPs were being head-killed in Lok Sabha, but he was allowing BJP MPs to speak uninterrupted for 10 minutes, 12 minutes. I mean, even in the Rajya Sabha, the chairperson was actively battling and making personal attacks on opposition MPs. Did you see the kind of stuff that he spoke to Pramod Tiwari ji or Mallikarjun Kharge, the leader of opposition? I mean, it is ridiculous. It's unparliamentary beyond anything. And of course, on a macro level, as Mridula ma'am and Rajalakshmi ji were saying, when Muslim homes are being demolished and their lives are being boycotted, are being boycotted and their persons are being lynched, when contractualization, massive backlogs, and a refusal to conduct caste census are circumscribing equity, when journalists, activists, and academics are being jailed for exercising their constitutionally mandated right of free right, and when the topmost leaders, including the Prime Minister, foment communal and caste fault lines in society, can we really say that liberty, equality, equity, fraternity, or justice are anything more than just showpieces in the Museum of India that was forged by our founders, or that we adhere to for the last 70 years? Hasn't BJP completely assigned constitution and constitutional values to the dustbin of history? There are grave issues, Niluji, affecting and afflicting India. And these are things that should have been debated using this 2 day special session. 80
Yeah.
crore Indians are so poor that they're dependent on handouts from the state. We are frittering away our democratic dividend with employment at a historic 50-year high. Our economic base has been completely stunted, with the top 20 companies monopolizing 78% of corporate profits, which is up from 46% 11 years ago. Per capita income, wages, consumption, everything is stagnant. Manipur is burning. There are vociferous tendencies in Jammu Kashmir, Punjab, and even Tamil Nadu. And terrorism is mushroom in Jammu Kashmir. I mean, not to mention the historic out immigration from outside India. Geopolitically, look at the neighborhood: Bangladesh, Nepal, China, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Chalo, theek hai. We accept Pakistan is an enemy nation. All of these other neighborhood countries, even Bhutan, is alienated from us. The USA, Canada, Germany have asked our raw units to leave, a first since 1973. I mean, this government has done everything in its power to undermine India's economic, social, geopolitical, and cultural progress we made since 1947. And how did we make that progress? By strictly adhering to the constitutional values and the constitutional idea of India. Today, we have regressed because the Modi government has not adhered to those principles. And finally, what you said about Rajnath Singh, I really want to respond to that. I was hoping actually Mridula ma'am would shed more light on that. But when India's constitution was being passed, the RSS's organizers wrote multiple editorials dismissing the constitution as foreign and alien to India. When the Hindu code bills were being passed just after that, they organized 48 rallies over 2 years in Delhi, where they burned Pandit Nehru and Dr. Ambedkar's effigies. Today, they are paying lip service to to Baba Saheb Ambedkar. What were they doing then? Do you want to see the cartoons in the organizer against Ambedkar? And after Indira Gandhi nationalized banks and abolished privy purses, the Jan Sangh organized coups in Bihar and Gujarat, and their top leaders publicly exhorted the armed forces to revolt against the elected government. The RSS, the BJP, or the Jan Sangh are directly complicit in the Babri Masjid demolition in 2002, even in 1984, which of course remains a blot on the Congress history also. I'm not denying that. But they were complicit. They had a role to play in 84, in crippling the elected government in 2012 and 13, in countless riots across India in the last 75 years, and in toppling at least 15 to 16 elected governments since 2014. Are these the people who are going to lecture us on adherence to constitutional values? I mean, look at the rank hypocrisy that these guys are.
What would you say to how would you respond, Pushpraj, when Rajnath Singh says that, constitution is not a gift to the nation by one party? What does he mean by that? I'll also ask for a response from Mridula.
Listen, I completely agree with that assessment. The constitution is a product of the freedom struggle. And who was leading the freedom struggle at that time? It was the Congress party, the Congress movement. And the Congress movement included many parts. It also had allies like the communist movement. It also had the subaltern movement aligned to it. All of these brought together, and those values, if you look at the Lahore session, the Karachi session, if you look at the resolution that Pandit Nehru moved in Karachi, which then became the objective resolution, these are the entire country's values, civilizational and the values coming from the freedom struggle, were enshrined in our constitution. So yes, the Congress party is not the only party that gave the constitution. No party should or can claim to that kind of rank. This is just pride, hubris. We can't. But the Congress party did lead the freedom struggle. You cannot deny that either. And the Jan Sangh and the RSS did not play a role in either writing the constitution or in the freedom struggle. In fact, during Quit India movement, they were actually encouraging people to boycott Quit India movement and stick to their posts. And they formed governments with the Muslim League in the Northwest Frontier provinces and in Punjab. And they were actually hitting and actually thrashing freedom fighters. What are the BJP lecturing us on? I mean, when I say us, I don't mean the Congress party. I mean every progressive Indian who actually abides by the constitutional idea of India. They really don't get any, they don't have any moral or ethical right to lecture us.
Right. But at the end of the day, Mridula ma'am, what you think is going to be, the takeaway of this discussion? Because everything is going on record. When BJP says that there is a fake narrative about the constitution, which is being spread by certain people, by certain powers, by certain groups, obviously all this is going on record, and it is for, the future generations to hear and listen as to what kind of a debate was there, when constitution completed 75 years. So what is going to be the big takeaway? Congress and the progressive forces, as what Pushpraj said, are fighting for the constitution. They are talking about liberty, equality, fraternity, brotherhood. Whereas here, BJP is trying to nitpick and point out to the loopholes as to what went wrong when the constitution was being made. So at the end of the day, are we going to hear that who is the biggest custodian of the constitution? Is it going to be BJP or Congress? Because BJP also is equally trying to appropriate the constitution.
Yes, actually, there are many answers possible to your question, but let me begin with going back a bit to before independence, and the great tragedy that I find today, that there is so many lies, plain falsehoods that are spread about what actually happened in the period before independence, and an even greater tragedy that they often seem to be getting away with it because us, that is progressive forces, are not loud enough, consistent enough, strong enough, committed enough to be constantly countering them. You know, so in this battle of perceptions, who is winning, I cannot say, but it is certainly a fact that the BJP and its whole ecosystem has succeeded in putting forward an essentially concocted, imagined narrative to serve their own interests, which has no basis in reality and which should actually be very easy to counter. You know, it is, as I said, just, I think it's a collective weakness of all of us. It's not just a weakness of the Congress party, of course, to the extent that it is the largest party in the progressive arena. Of course, its responsibility is greater than that of any other, but the left parties have an equally strong, I think, responsibility. All of us as citizens, as scholars, journalists, I think the media is playing a shoddy role in not doing its job of asking tough questions all the time and exposing lies. It only takes two questions from a reporter, you know, when such statements are being made to actually blow the whole thing apart. So that this whole narrative, and Pushpraj has already said what needed to be said, so I don't want to repeat it. But it is indeed a travesty that political forces whose ancestors had absolutely nothing to do with either fighting for freedom or the process of the making of the constitution, right, can actually claim that they are questioning other people's narratives about how the constitution was, and actually accusing the Congress of monopolizing the credit for the constitution. And as Pushpa just said, firstly, I do not know who they are. Are they quoting anybody? I do not recall the Congress ever claiming exclusive ownership or right or credit for making the Constitution. I think the Congress has always, in fact, that's one of its weaknesses and its strength. It is quite over generous in including everybody and giving credit to everybody, which is a good thing. But I don't think that that they've been doing that. That we are the only ones who have played a role in the Congress. In fact, I'll give you a couple of examples to make the point. The Congress bent over backwards when the Constituent Assembly was formed to include people belonging to other political groups and parties and individuals such as Ambedkar, who had not got elected on their own to the Central Assembly and thereby, or from the provincial assemblies into the Constituent Assembly, on their own quota. They brought in people like Ambedkar, for example. They in the first cabinet that is formed after independence, Shama Prasad Mukherjee, who's a major leader of the Hindu Mahasabha, who opposed the freedom struggle during the Quit India movement, who was a minister in Bengal in 1942 when the British are suppressing the movement, and who writes to the governor saying how we can control and suppress this Congress-led disturbances. He gives them a whole, what is today called a toolkit of how to suppress the freedom struggle. But such was the generosity of people like Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the entire leadership at that time. They said nation building is not an exclusive job, and the constitution is the first step in nation building. So right from now that we have won freedom, we want everybody on board. What need did Nehru or the Congress have to bring Shama Prasad Mukherjee into the cabinet? Can somebody please tell me? Here was a man who was displaying the Hindu Mahasabha flag on his house. Nehru writes to him and saying that Shama Prasad Mukherjee, it doesn't quite look good. You are a minister in the government and you are flying a Bhagwa Jhanda. That doesn't look good. But what I'm making is that such somebody who's diametrically opposed to you politically, you include them in your cabinet. Similarly, Ambedkar is given the responsibility of being the chairman of the drafting committee. By whom? Who was the majority in the Constituent Assembly? The Congress. If the Congress didn't want it, would he have been given that responsibility? So I think not recognizing that, in fact, Congress was very broad minded and wanted to take everyone and did take everyone on board. It is Ambedkar who resigned from Nehru's cabinet. It is Shama Prasad Mukherjee who left and not Nehru who threw him out. So I think the socialists left the Congress. Nehru begged Jayaprakash Narayan till the last minute not to do so. And even after they left, he never said a bad word about them, though they said many harsh words about him. So I think one has to uh, make an attempt also to put this correct version of history, this true version of history, which is not my history or the Congress's history, but the nation's history, before the people, so that they know the truth, they know the reality. And we have to therefore counter the false concocted narrative. It's very, very important, apart from the fact that it is self-serving for the BJP to do so. I think even going beyond that limited objective, it is very important for us, in the larger interest of the nation, you know, to counter this and to present, and this should be an opportunity. Let's join the debate. You
Absolutely.
see, we also have to see where, see, your strength and your imagination also lies in making the best or taking something good out of adversity. Yes, BJP is trying to do what it is trying to do with the debate in the constitution. They are using it for their own ends. They can't do anything more. They are in perpetual election mode. They can't think beyond power. Even ideology, I don't know how important it is for them now. I think power has become a much greater motive force than even their own ideology. Ideology has also become also a handmaiden to power. I used to say it differently earlier, that the BJP was a very ideological party and that was its strength. I'm not so sure which way the balance is now. But whatever it is, we should use this opportunity, like you are doing, to have a debate on the constitution. Let us as citizens broaden this debate. Let us take it beyond the Lok Sabha. Let's not
Absolutely.
stop tomorrow, when the, in a sense, the tamasha is over, or 4 days from now in the parliament. But let's carry this on in the newspapers, outside, campaigns. What prevents the left parties, the Congress party, progressive forces, from making the 75th year of the Constitution into a year where we campaign on just telling people what the Constitution, its history, all that's all about? Nothing stops us.
Absolutely. So, as the word which you just said, that this looks like a tamasha because the real essence of the constitution has been forgotten. But even then, if the ruling party is trying to appropriate it in different ways. Now, if you talk to the BJP people, they'll say, "Oh, we were the ones to devise this constitution day on 26th November. We were the ones to initiate this discussion. We gotten to celebrate 75 years of constitution. So, how on earth can the opposition really say that we don't believe in the constitution?" Yes, Mridula, ma'am.
Just
Yeah.
one small point. I think the point to answer that is that you need to do all this because you don't have a reality behind you. So you need to create these symbols and a mythology of,
True.
I've done this and I've done that, and I'm the emergency day to prove that you're democratic when everybody knows you're not democratic. So I
Right.
think these are only proofs that there's a lot to hide. So you
Absolutely.
can celebrate this day and that day, and it means nothing.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's
So,
like it's like making us all fly the flag, in our houses on Independence Day.
Hmm.
as a kind of diktat. To make up for the fact that for how many years you didn't even accept it as your national flag. It's
Hmm.
only to hide that reality. So we have to constantly go on saying this would nae Musalman, the phrase that new converts are always very, over enthusiastic. So here
Yeah.
it's a question of the new converts to nationalism being over enthusiastic and nationalism, whereas we take it in our stride. We are naturally nationalists.
All right. So, Rajlakshmi, I'll come to you. That
Yeah.
how are the papers now going to report? Today is just the first day, and was Mridula ma'am was saying that why can't we use this opportunity to tell the people as to what 75 years of the Indian Constitution means? But I'm just wondering how media is going to report all of this. Now, what other kind of headlines you are expecting, maybe coming out tomorrow and later as well, when the debate is happening in Rajya Sabha?
Well, sadly, by and large, the media is going to sort of dwell on this, on this one-upmanship that has happened, in Parliament without really addressing, whether substantive issues were raised or not. I mean, hopefully, let's hope that a section of the media still is able to sort of pick up, in fact, pick out the more interesting aspects, or in fact the unaddressed issues, which in the which should have been raised by let's say, I think by all political parties, irrespective of whether it's ruling or whether it's opposition. I think it's a collective responsibility of all political parties to address the infirmities, okay, and to in fact, bring to light the things that have not happened, the unfinished agenda, the unfulfilled promises that were made. When 75 years is a big time. 75 years is not a short period.
Absolutely.
So it's a solid period, where which can be subject to critical assessment. And I
Absolutely.
think I think it's a great opportunity, even if the political class isn't do it, is not going to do it. I'm sure. In fact, the media should, and maybe the intellectual class should also sort of take it up, in some form or the other. And yes, it is an opportunity for all sensible parties, let's say, who do not have that thing about it clinging to the past, and to that little, so-called, glorious past in which everything is hunky-dory and there's nothing wrong, because that's how it's been presented today, at least by the ruling party, that there's nothing uh, required to be addressed. All that it needs to is to sort of pull down the opposition, right? I mean, they don't have to give a report card about what they've done. I mean, even if it's not a report card, I mean, I think collectively you can present something as a nation's achievements or non-achievements, right? But in their framework, it does not fall in their framework. In their
Right.
framework, it's not about removing inequality. It's not about I mean, ensuring a secular India. It's not about adhering to socialist principles. It's not about removing the vast stark inequalities in a country today. It's not about giving jobs to everybody. It's not in their agenda at all. It's about crony capitalism. It's about funding temples under every mosques. It's about using divisive language, right? It's about lowering the standards of debate. It's about subverting institutions. It's about appointing governors who do the bidding of the government entirely. I mean, it is just reduced to this. And it's also about, putting people behind jail who probably who are, critics of the government, and who have a different point of view, and by labeling them anti-national. We've seen all this, happen over the last few years. There's a certain fatigue also, but obviously, one really need to, I think, needs to sort of counter it, at every level. People are fighting it out in courts. The farmers are fighting it on the streets. Okay, you have the working class which is doing its bit. I mean, all these are representative of a certain anxiety that is there in society today, and it is reflective of the unadhered, or the unfulfilled promises of the constitution. That's how it gets expressed in the form of, democratic forms of dissent which are taking place in the country today. I mean,
Right.
isn't that a thing to even talk about? Today, because why is there so much dissent today? Isn't it? I mean, we are a parliamentary democracy. We are a democracy. So then, why are these things, happening today, where people are not allowed to express themselves freely? People, I mean, if they express themselves freely, it has to be under such fear. It has to be under such have to be so guarded about what you say. Tomorrow you'll have the IT, you have the CBI, you have all ED, at your doors. Okay, you have a media which is so scared and so sort of diffident to sort of speak its mind,
All right.
less graded. So all
Yeah.
these things, all these things need to be addressed, and
Right.
I'm sure
All right.
someone will.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll come for the concluding remarks to Pushpraj. What would you really say towards the end, Pushpraj? Yeah.
So two, three very quick points. Firstly, if the BJP genuinely wants to claim ownership of the constitution, this is something that I think. I mean, I don't want to say that I speak on behalf of the India parties, but as someone that who works closely with them, I think we will all be very delighted if the BJP took ownership of the constitution and actually started doing something about it to further it. The fact is that they're not doing anything about it, and then you paying just lip service. Don't just address the symbolic, right? Also start working on the substantive. If you can do that, we would be the first people to stand behind you in actually furthering the constitution promise that is due to all of us, irrespective of class, caste, creed, and so on and so forth. That's the first thing. The second thing is, rather than doing this moral high standing as to what you did not do or what you did do in the last 75 years, you please focus on what you are doing today for the last 11 years and what you are going to do next for the next 4 years. That is what is of that is much more important to the people of India. Because see, frankly speaking, I mean, I know this is a very specious analogy. Let's say when I was younger, I was a very mischievous child. I used to have chewing gum in class in school, and I used to sometimes stick it at the bottom of my desk. Does that mean that the teacher should now 20 years later say that tum chewing gum kyun kha rahe ho? You are not allowed to have chewing gum, or you're not allowed to say anything in front of me. This is the same kind of puerile logic that the BJP is employing. Yes, missteps and mistakes were made by multiple governments, including this government in the last 75 years. No one is born perfect, of course, unless you're the avatar of God. Apart from that one avatar of God, everyone who has been in this country, who has been a prime minister, who has been a minister, has made mistakes. That does not legitimize you drowning out their voice and undermining and circumscribing the legislative and representative nature of their duties. They are constitutionally mandated to ask you questions. You cannot be ramrodding them like you've been doing with Muslim homes. You cannot be bulldozing the opposition's opinions and questions. You cannot be rigging the parliamentary rules and misusing the two chairs to deflect and evade accountability. That is not becoming of a mature democracy, and certainly not of a mature and secure government. It shows that you have something to hide. Your sense of commission and omission are something that you are hiding, which is why you are having to resort to such theatrics. This is very evident to almost everyone in India and outside India. I mean, this entire debate on George Soros and deep state in the US, we are really not understanding. I mean, they are certainly pandering to their core base, but at what cost? You're compromising our foreign relationships with US, with Canada, with allied nations when China is grabbing your land, and when Nepal is grabbing your land. I mean, this is really jeopardizing and compromising the national interest. The BJP and especially the Prime Minister need to realize that after 11 years in government, you're not just the Prime Minister or the elected government of those who voted for you. You're the government of every Indian, and you start behaving like that. And if you don't, then you please to that very famous slogan that they said, मैं तो झोला फकीर हूँ, झोला डाल के चला जाऊंगा. ठीक है, pick up your झोला and चलो. चलते बनो. Let someone else do the job who's more responsible.
Right. All right. So we'll have to end it here, but interesting times. And tomorrow, all eyes would be on the speech made by Prime Minister. He's going to give a reply in the Lok Sabha, and also Rahul Gandhi would be making his speech. So it's going to be, obviously, it's going to be fireworks in the Lok Sabha. So thank you so much, Mridula ma'am, for joining TK Rajlakshmi, Pushparaj. It was wonderful having all of you on the program. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this discussion: subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal.
The Federal and Francis Xavier Engineering College jointly present the NLA Marathon 2024. This event is powered by Little Flower Public School and NIMS Hospital, Tirunelveli. Run for Health on Sunday, December 29. Entry is free and all are welcome.